Welcome to the Songwriter Connection podcast, where we look at the craft of songwriting through the eyes of a songwriter. Each week, we make a connection with a music maker, listen to their songs, and hear their stories. From Nashville, Tennessee, here's your host, Dave Lenahan.
And this month, we are celebrating SCP 500K. What? We're talking about Songwriter Connection, 500,000 listeners now worldwide. Thank you so much.
All right.
Appreciate you spreading the word about our humble little podcast that started during COVID. And today on the show, a very special guest. And as a matter of fact, the Hall of Famer is back. And they say three's a charm, so I think we probably get it right this time. Right, Kent Blazy?
I think we get it right every time. You do a great job.
Thank you so much. Enjoyed having you on in the past. Just to let you know a little bit more, in case you don't know, if you're under a rock somewhere, Kent's songs really help to define one of the greatest eras in country music. The 90s country era is big and back, and he wrote some great songs like Tomorrow Never Comes, the first one from that Garth Brooks guy, the first #1. But other ones, Ain't Going Down to the Sun Comes Up, and but for other artists too. I mean, there was... I'm looking at Diamond Rio. It's just
Patty Loveless.
Patty Loveless, just into the Hall of Fame. I'm drawing a blank there. And the Black Dress song, Chris Young.
Yep.
By the way, on that our last episode that we did was episode 3, season 3. Check it out because he'll tell you the story about how the Black Dress almost didn't get into that song.
That's right.
That was a cool story. And in our first episode, it was back season 3, episode number 3, was the story behind how you wrote Tomorrow Never Comes with Garth and your good buddy Garth, and getting into the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame. So good to have you back.
It's good to be here, always.
You've been very, very busy, huh?
I have been out promoting this new record, From the Beatles to the Bluebird.
Oh, I want to talk about it. Mm-hmm.
That's what you got to do.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. Right away I was thinking about this morning on my walk. They talk about the day the music died, February 3rd, 1959, the plane crash that took Buddy Holly and the Big Bob, Richie Valens. Yep. And I think if you could pick a day that the music was resurrected, it would probably be February 9th, 1964.
I think that is correct. I remember it. Kennedy had been assassinated.
Yeah, just months before.
Everybody was so depressed. It was like 911 when everybody was scared to go out at night and do anything. And then here come the Beatles, and they bring a joy back to the world. And, people that weren't around at that time don't know the impact that it had on everything, politics, religion, clothing, music, and it's still echoing out. They have a new song out.
They do, and I love that new song. What do you think of that new song?
It's pretty cool how they could do it, and that all the original Beatles are on it because Harrison did some kind of part in the mid-'90s or something on it. And
they were getting a lot of flack about people saying, well, it's not John, it's AI John, and it's not. Ringo just came out this week saying that no, what they used AI for was to separate the tracks, piano, but they used some of the original piano too, and his voice. But no, it really is him singing,
And Peter Jackson's the one that developed that technology, being able to pull things apart that are in a mix, and he did that for the Get Back movie or whatever it was that they did.
That was a great film.
A great film.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got this new record out, which really highlights that date in history.
And it's going to be the 60th anniversary this year.
Wow. Can you imagine that?
I can't imagine that.
I can't either. It's incredible. But I do remember that day watching it. And I remember the day sitting around, I was just a kid, and my grandfather, who lived in Buffalo, New York, reading the Buffalo News around his table. Not quite this table, although this is an antique table. We still have that table in our family. But he's reading the paper and he goes, Davey, look at these guys from Liverpool with the long hair. And he turns the paper around and he goes, they're called the Beatles. And he's, they'll never make it, right?
Right. Well, that's what,
Immediately I had to hear him,
Exactly. If they don't like it, I must like it.
Yeah.
But it did. They changed everything.
Yeah, it really did. And tell us how do you see that? We talk about, I just said they resurrected music. But I mean, all of a sudden, people are thinking, I want a guitar. I can write music.
Exactly. And, more people watched TV that night than had ever watched TV. And the crime rate in America went down.
Wow.
While they were on the Ed Sullivan Show. So how bizarre is that? But, it just, they had a sound that nobody else was doing, and they'd incorporated a lot of the Everly Brothers and Chuck Berry and Elvis, all those influences.
They loved all that
on them.
stuff, didn't they?
Yeah. And, the cool thing about that, too, is we, in this day and age, take music for granted so much.
We do.
You want a song, you go to Spotify, you go to Apple. They would ride 3 hours on a bus to hear a 45 of Little Richard singing Tutti Frutti. And, music was a different thing.
Yeah.
And they made music for teenagers turn into that. And you're right, so many people started wanting to play guitar like the Beatles when that came out, and the guitar sales just shot up. And in the one song about the Beatles to the Bluebird, there was a kid 3 streets down, and he was already a pretty good player. And I didn't play, but he knew I wanted to play guitar, so he sold me his Stratocaster on time. But to give me lessons, I had to buy him cigarettes, and it was Kentucky, so you could smoke when you were 6. But
always encouraged in Kentucky. The tobacco was
tobacco and whiskey, and so that's kind of how I got into it.
Isn't that something?
And
and I wanted to say too, and there's another thing I wanted to bring up. You came from the Lexington, Kentucky area, right?
Correct.
And just recently on the show, we had a couple of members from Exile on the show.
I'm sorry.
And we had just a wonderful time. And of course, they came from that area too.
Well, they were very influential on me. They were like the group in Lexington from the time I was a little kid. And
when they were the Exiles?
They were the Exiles. And the one guy, I don't know if Sonny was one of the guys.
Sonny was one of the guys.
Well, Sonny and I used to play in bands together.
Did you really?
Yeah. And the cool thing about Sonny, we're still friends, kind of like Garth and I. It's just so unusual these days to have people that have been friends that long a period of time in the music business.
Yes, yes.
So I was playing guitar for Ian Tyson in Canada, and I had a couple weeks off, and I went back to Lexington, and I stopped by to see Sonny, and he had this new guy who had just joined their band, Mark Gray.
Mark Gray, yeah.
And so Sonny kind of liked what I was writing and stuff, and he said to Mark, hey, why don't you play Mark some songs, And so I played him some songs, and Mark, who was an incredible songwriter, singer, piano player, everything, he loved what I was doing, and he said, you need to just move to Nashville. And Ian Tyson had been telling me the same thing, so it was like, if you have two people that you look up to as heroes, and they say that, you think, well, maybe I need to really do that.
Yeah.
So I moved down because of Mark, and he said, when you get down here, I'll help you any way I can. And
did he? Yeah.
Nope. He kind of did, but he had his own demons he was wrestling with.
Did. Yeah, and we lost him a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and it was sad because he went down that road and never came back. But
and it happens in this business.
But just the fact that he thought I had something was enough to get me to move to Nashville, and I'm ever thankful for that. But great guys, and I'm glad they're still out there playing.
60 years for them too.
That's just awesome, and they're just an inspiration to me that you're still out there doing it, and
me too.
Dylan's still out there doing it. The Stones got a new record out.
Yes, they do, and it's great.
So that's why I Want to Die Young at a very older age was written about McCartney, but it was written about me too. So.
We're going to get into that. That's just on the new album, and I want to just set up real quick. You took a trip to Liverpool. And you visited all those sites, didn't you?
We did, and
I want to do that. Tell me about it.
Well, it's just so cool. On the dock, we were on a boat, and so we docked there, and on the dock is the statues of the Beatles, and they're like maybe 9 feet tall or something. And so it was cold over there, and this was in June, and I had a Bluebird sweatshirt on because I'd done a benefit for them a couple weeks before, and they gave me the sweatshirt. And so somebody took a picture, and when I saw it, me standing with the Beatles and the Bluebird Cafe shirt, I thought, that's a title for an album. Because Garth got his break at the Bluebird Cafe playing If Tomorrow Never Comes when everybody had passed on him for 2 years. So,
and even the when they signed him, they had already said no that week, didn't they? And then they said, well, maybe we ought to...
We missed something. Why don't you come back in? So... so that just sounded like a great title, and I came home and started working on songs that would go with it. And
so you decided this is going to be that kind of a concept record.
But it was fun to go to Penny Lane and Strawberry Field and see the house where Ringo grew up in, and
cool.
the Cavern, and all that stuff. And just to picture what it was like. I know.
I understand you could play at the Cavern. There's a girl in
Yeah.
town whose band did that. They have a little Beatles thing, 4 girls together.
Yeah, they had people playing while we were there during the middle of the day. I'm sure they just keep the music going all the time.
How cool.
But yeah, it was very cool.
Yeah. I just can't imagine. I got to do that. It's on the bucket list one
Yeah,
day.
you got to do that.
Let's get back to the day that the music was resurrected. There's a song, and it leads off the CD, February 9th, 1964. And it's a pretty cool date in history because, like we said, things changed. And can I play this? This is the first cut from the new record.
Thank you.
From Beatles to the Bluebird. Kent Blazy, our guest on the Songwriter Connection. Hall of Famer is back.
February 9th, 1964. The world saw a sound they never heard before. 4 mop tops up on the TV screen. Old men laughed and the young girls screamed. Every red-blooded American boy wanted to learn to play guitar. February 9th, 1964. The British invasion hit the American shore. We saw them standing there, shaking their shaggy hair. More people watched TV that night than ever had before. February 9th, 1964. The nation was depressed 'cause Kennedy is gone. The Beatles brought back joy when they came along. February 9th, 1964. The whole world changed that day for sure. Those Liverpool lads took us on a magical mystery tour on February 9th, 1964. Beatlemania still going strong these days. Folks of every age still come to hear McCartney play. February 9th, 1964. Oh, what a magic night that was. We're still singing and believing all you need is love. Thanks to February 9th, 1964. Yeah, February 9th, 1964.
It is so cool how you worked in some of the songs, the Beatles songs.
Yeah.
But the sounds just kill me. You've got that. Is that Steve doing the
12
Beatles-
string,
The
yeah.
12 string.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Your buddy Steve?
Yeah, Steve Allen, great guitar player.
Uh-huh.
I just told him do something like George would do. And He did,
And he did. And he helped you on the Birds album when you were last year
Yeah,
for the
he
Birds.
did.
Was the record. And
He and I play in a band together when we can find gigs. Yeah, he's just fabulous.
very talented.
I don't even need to tell him what to do. He just knows what to do because we kind of grew up in that same era together, and pretty cool.
He had a pretty big band in the 80s, too, didn't he, Steve?
He was in 2020.
2020, okay. Yeah.
And they had a couple pop hits. If you go to American Bandstand and Google 2020, you'll see him on there playing.
With Dick Clark?
Yeah, Dick Clark. And
awesome.
pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
And Steve's from Tulsa. And the cool thing is, you know, when I started out playing guitar, I had to buy cigarettes for a guy that would teach me to play. But his guitar teacher was Hubert Shamblin, who played lead guitar for Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys. That was his guitar teacher. I mean, a fabulous jazz player, rock player, country player. And so that's where Steve gets so much of that talent, I think. He had a really good teacher.
He's definitely got some chops.
He does.
Absolutely. And he's co-written a couple songs on this record, too.
Yeah, right? He wrote that one and the very last, first and last.
The first and last.
Yeah.
Bookended, okay. Do you remember February 9th, 1964? You remember watching TV that day? I
do remember that. And the reason I remember it is... in Kentucky, stuff usually got to us about 3 years after everywhere else. But I remember being on the school bus that week and just kids talking about the Beatles, and I had no clue what they were talking about. So like everybody else, I tuned in, and it was mind-boggling. It just blew my mind. Especially the girls screaming and, just the sound that they had.
Oh, yeah.
And the joy that they seemed to be having playing together on stage. And, what was so cool to me is when Peter Jackson did that movie and they were up on the top of the building playing again after they'd been arguing for months.
Yeah.
It was like they were kids again.
It really
was just that magic. And it's like that's what music does.
That's what music's all about. That healing. I have a funny story about that. My nephew works at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh, cool.
And this spring, we went up to Cleveland, where I'm from, and we visited, and he got us in. And
he better.
Yeah, he better, yeah. and it was great because I hadn't been there in like 20 years,
Right.
His dad was in a band that actually played there one night in a Battle of the Bands thing, so it was cool to go back, reminisce. And they were doing the Beatles rooftop concert, and they were playing it in a special area, and they had a little surround theater. You'd walk in and there were just a few people in there.
Right.
And I have terrible allergies, and my eyes were like faucets that day. I mean, they just won't turn off. I need to go back and forth between the dry eye and the botulinum allergy, and nothing's stopping it. And so I'm sitting there watching it, and there's just another older lady next to me, and she sees my eyes pouring down, and she comes over and puts her arm around me, and she pats me on the shoulder, and she goes, "I know, right?" And I go, "Hey, I know, John, I don't know." Yeah. So I just played it up.
Well, yeah,
but emotional, yes.
It was emotional. It was emotional being in Liverpool,
I'll bet.
Seeing where it all came from.
So did you get to Abbey Road too? And did you do the... No, everybody has to do the crosswalk.
See, that's in London.
Oh, that's in London?
Yeah, so...
Okay.
We were a long way from London. We were supposed to go to London, and the boat couldn't dock for whatever reason, so we ended up... where's the time change? Greenwich or something? Greenwich, England. That's where time starts every day.
Oh,
that's where we ended up, and so we didn't. We were supposed to go into London, and we didn't get to do that. So next time. That's right.
Next time. Awesome. Well, cool. Getting back to the record, Beatles to the Bluebird. Cool concept. And you were talking about the shirt and the picture, and those pictures are out there. If you know what? In fact, I'm going to try to. I'll post that on my webpage.
Awesome.
When this, because it's a great picture of you next to these 9-foot-tall Beatles statues, and you in your Bluebird shirt. Now, if you're not familiar with the Bluebird, tell them about the Bluebird here in Nashville.
It's this tiny little club that was probably the first songwriter club there ever had been, and started by Amy Curlin in the early 80s, and so many people have been discovered there.
Yeah.
So many songwriters, Taylor Swift, Garth Brooks. It just goes on and on. And
Dave Linehan. No.
I'm
playing there in December. So
that's good.
Yeah.
So it's just a magic place where
is.
It's a home for songwriters, and it always has been. And it's 90 seats. It's tiny.
It's hard to get tickets.
It's hard to get tickets, especially after the Nashville TV show. But it's just a magical place. And thanks to the Bluebird, Garth got a record deal, hence the Bluebird in the title.
And he played If Tomorrow Never Comes.
He played If Tomorrow Never Comes. He got to play one song, and he played that. And Lynn Schultz from Capitol Records, who'd passed on him for the third time that week, came up to him and said, "Maybe we missed something. Why don't you come back in?" And the rest is history.
Wow, it really is. And anytime you get to play there, it's such a special, even today for you, Hall of Famer, huh? I bet you it's something you're still look forward to.
I mean, I'm getting to do a show. This is pretty cool. You'll appreciate it that you're going to be there. But they asked me to bring 3 young writers that I know that need to be heard. And so I got it set up. It's an early show on the 20th. But there's a friend of mine who Garth introduced me to back when we were just starting out, and his name's Kent also, Kent Maxon. And he and Garth were writing together, and Garth thought we should write together. And so we did a couple times, but Kent was working for Circuit City, and they made him an offer to go to Texas and be like one of the heads of Circuit City. And so he had a family, 2 kids and a wife, and so he moved down there right before Garth hit big. And I think he regretted it from then on. And so he finally moved back here about 4 or 5 years ago. And my wife's name's Cindy, and he married a woman named Cindy. In fact, I married them at our house. So Kent and Cindy married Kent and Cindy, but he had never played the Bluebird. So I started thinking it'd be cool to get him to come out and sit in that night and at least play one song with these youngsters where he could say I played the Bluebird. So I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely.
So to him, it's just a magical place that he's never gotten to play, and so I wanted to make that happen for him. And another friend of mine, J. Boy Adams, who's a big Texas artist, he'd never played the Bluebird, and I told him I had a show coming up, and he said, "Well, I've never played the Bluebird," and I said, "Well, just consider yourself being on my show." So,
we're going to change that, right?
So he flew in and played, and it's just for people that know what it is, it's life-changing when you get to be up there and play.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And it's such a great audience. They're appreciative. They listen. In fact, there's little cards on the table that tell you, shh, and they will kick you out if you talk. And so it's just such a trip because you talk about that immediate feedback of a song that you've written,
Right.
And you can tell if it's going over. You can tell.
Well, Garth, I'm not Garth, but actually Pat Alger talks about it because we do a live hospice every year in January.
Great.
And
I love that you do
Pat
that.
Alger, Tony Rada, Vic Shaw, me, and sometimes that other guy, GB, shows up.
GB shows up sometimes?
He did last year.
Wouldn't surprise me. He's that kind of guy,
When they wrote Unanswered Prayers, they went and played the Bluebird that night. And after they got to the end of the first verse, people gave him a standing ovation. And and it's like, okay, there's your feedback. That's a big song
a winner
right there.
That's a keeper.
And so they were right about that. So that's the kind of thing that can happen there.
That is really something. So we connect these two great things: the Beatles coming to America, to inspiring you and all the things that you've been through, Music Row, the song, everything, to the Bluebird. It started here, ended there. And
exactly.
I think it's a cool story. And I was wondering if you can play the song for us.
Yeah. Changed in 64 by 4 kids from Liverpool. Shaggy hair and electric guitar. Man, that was a new kind of cool. We had lo-fi on the hi-fi, blasting that music loud. Sometimes I have to laugh when I look back on it now. Got me a Fender Stratocaster, couldn't play a single lick. A kid 3 streets down would show me chords if I bought him cigarettes. After all these years, I'm still learning how to play. It's been a long, strange trip to where I am today. Oh, and I guess I've logged 10,000 hours playing high school dances and honky-tonk bars. And never in my wildest dreams did I ever dream I would get this far. Oh, I sure have come a long, long way. From the Beatles to the Bluebird Cafe. There were some times I was so broke I almost gave it up. But I'm lucky I've always made my living doing what I love. And I'm still doing honky-tonk bars. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever dream I would get this far. Oh, I sure have come a long, long way. From the Beatles to the Bluebird Cafe. From the Beatles to the Bluebird.
Great tribute to not only the Beatles, but our Bluebird Cafe here in Nashville. It's Kent Blazy, Hall of Fame songwriter on this Songwriter Connection. Kent, going to take a real quick break, and then we'll come back and talk about that, okay? Don't go away.
Hi, I'm Brooklyn Summer. Every 4 seconds, a child disappears somewhere in the world. Imagine a family's pain when a child's been stolen. Human trafficking is a global epidemic. Voices Against Trafficking speaks for victims who are locked in a world of hopelessness. Broken Treasures, You Hold the Key is a music compilation featuring artists and celebrities who want to save the world's children. Right now, you can help save someone's child. Go to voicesagainsttrafficking.com today. Proceeds benefit child victims. We can free them, but you hold the key.
You're listening to the Songwriter Connection, connecting with music makers and hearing their songs and stories. Now back to the show with your host, Dave Linehan.
And we're back with Kent Blazy, who's in the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame. And it's good to have you back around our dining room table here on the podcast.
I
Kent,
love it.
Good to have you here. Folks, if you're listening on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. That really helps. Although I know we're not the video podcast as of yet. We're exploring that. We're still thinking about it. But it still helps. Just click and subscribe, and then you'll never miss an episode. We publish every Wednesday religiously, 2 o'clock in the morning Central Time, which is our Nashville time, so that you can wake up with a cup of coffee and make a new connection. So,
wow.
From the Beatles to the Bluebird, the new record from Kent Blazy, and it's just really I'm really just enjoying listening to every song. Every song has got a cool story and very autobiographical, biographical in parts. You know, I love how you worked in your Fender Stratocaster that you mentioned earlier into the song. That's kind of cool. And I love lo-fi on the hi-fi.
Right. Well, that's what it was. It was like,
yeah,
it was funky stuff we listened to. You know, we didn't know any better back then. And in 5 years, the technology had changed drastically.
Yes, it did. And then again,
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, during the COVID, that first check that came in, I used toward this I decided I wanted a new hi-fi stereo and with vinyl.
Right.
And that's what I did. And then I went through and I bought like every Beatles record I could. I think I've got them all now. No, well, you can't get them all.
Right.
But just about, And I love listening to my vinyl. And I love the Beatles. And you talked about all the genres that they used to listen to and what they grew up on. And if you listen to some of those early Beatles records, they always put an old R&B song or a country song in there. So,
you mean George Harrison's big idol was Chet Atkins. He played a Chet Atkins guitar. And I think that finger-picking thing that George did gave them a different sound than people that just strum, know. And
sure did.
It's all those little pieces that each of them brought that it couldn't have been anybody else but them.
And then they all could harmonize, too.
Yeah.
Which goes unnoticed a lot of times, but was a big part of that Beatles
Great
sound.
harmonies.
Yeah. Great harmonies. Absolutely. And they were great musicians. And they were just kids, Ken. They were like 21, 22.
Exactly. That's what people forget, too. And then, they also had played 12 hours a day for 8 years in little crappy places in Germany and everywhere else. And that they were ready when they hit.
Yeah.
It wasn't like today, well, we got to send him to school to teach him how to play because he looks good and we're going to make him a star. It's not that way. They paid their dues. And
we seem to, in the industry, be going away from that again today. We're starting to get people that are just normal, everyday folks. I mean, people with tattoos on their faces and maybe
that's
have
everyday folks.
well,
yeah, I know what you're saying.
It's not like the rock idols anymore. It's like okay, maybe not a regular person, but people with weight on them. Maybe they're not the most beautiful person in the world, but they're genuine and their music is genuine.
Well, and I like seeing that because for a while you all had to look like Tim McGraw.
Yeah,
and now it's big boys, you know, and I wouldn't want to mess with them. So.
I wouldn't want to mess with them, that's for sure. Things change, and that's what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's good to see.
It really is, yeah. There is a few of these songs on this CD that I just really love. And one of the stories I wish you would talk about is Birds on a High Line. Very cool story behind that song.
So Garth introduced me to Kim Williams.
Kim Williams, by the way, he's in the
Hall of Fame. Oh, yeah, one of the most amazing writers. And Garth called me up one day, and what Garth used to do, which I think is pretty cool, if he and I would write a song, he would play it for other songwriters to see what they thought. And
nice.
I remember him playing me Wolves by Stephanie Davis in my kitchen. You know, I'm thinking of cutting this song. After I finished crying like a baby, I said, I think that might be a good one. But he called me up one day and he said, hey, I got this kid that I've been writing with. And, of course, Kim was 10 years older than him, but Garth always called him a kid. And he said, I played him this last song that you and I wrote, and he hated it. Do you want to write with him?
He hated it?
Yeah. And I said, well, why don't I write with somebody who hates my song? And he said, well, he liked one line in there, and he thought it could be a title for a song. And so I said, okay, I'll get together if you want to get together with him. And so...
wait a minute, I just got to know what that line is.
What never happened is what I'll never forget.
Okay.
And so what Garth hadn't told me was that Kim had been burned over 90% of his body.
Yeah.
And so Garth was never on time, and Kim was always on time. So the first day he showed up at my house and I opened the door, I was kind of in shock. You know, I wasn't expecting him, but after 10 minutes of knowing him, you just forgot about it. So Garth finally got over there, and we started working on that song from the title, and we got about halfway through it, and Garth's kind of like this other kid I work with, Corey Batten, who just kind of spews stuff out every once in a while.
Corey is so great. Look him up if you don't know.
Yeah,
he's really cool.
Fabulous. And so Garth was in another room when we were taking a break, and he was singing something that sounded bluegrassy, and I'm from Kentucky, and I said, well, what is that? And he said, I don't know, I'm just making it up. And I said, well, let's make it up. So it ended up being Cold Shoulder, which was on his record. And then we went back and finished the other song, and it got cut by the Birch Sisters and was a single. And after that writing appointment, I thought 2 songs in one day, that might be
not bad.
A pretty good thing.
Yeah.
You know, so we got to be really close friends. We got to tour out England and Ireland together, among many other places, and just a fabulous guy. And so his first song that he ever had cut with Garth was New Way to Fly.
New Way to Fly. I remember that great song.
And so...
did that on the Opry. There's a video of him on the Opry doing
Yep.
that. Yeah.
And so at Kim's funeral, Garth wanted me and him to sing that together. So we did. And so I went over and heard Garth in Ireland. It was his last stadium tour things. And when he did New Way to Fly, he came over right where I was on the side of the stage and sang it like he was singing it right towards me. And I'm going, oh man, I'm crying like a baby.
Your allergies were getting you that day.
My allergies,
Yeah.
my eyes were just, they needed that stuff like you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so I just started thinking, everywhere I go, I see these birds on a high line, you know. And so I was down in Texas doing a show with this friend of mine, J. Boy Adams, and we had a day off, and everywhere you go in Texas, there's all these birds on the high lines. And I thought, I'm gonna write a song about Kim and call it Birds on a High Line.
Because that's how the song started, wasn't it?
Yeah, like Birds on a High Line.
Like Birds on a High Line, yeah.
So it all came out in one day, you know.
Did it really?
Yeah, it was pretty wild. I just worked on it all day, and, you know, it was a very heartfelt thing. And so when I put that on the album started morphing into being a different thing than what it had been in the first few songs. And it led me to write some songs about what it's like to be aging in America or aging in the music business, like I Want to Die Young, or even Stay Wild was another one. And what's the other one on there? It's kind of like that. It's like... just because people think you're old doesn't mean you need to be old, or they tell you you're old. And,
That's
you know,
right.
McCartney's out there, 84 years old, still touring, singing in the same key, sung them in to begin with. And
Ringo and the All-Star Band.
I know.
I saw him a couple years ago at the Ryman. That was a great show.
Yeah,
great show, man.
He was very underrated from the very beginning, but he's still out there rocking along. So it ended up being kind of 2 different albums in one. But, you know, it's like you can't buy into what people tell you things have to be like. And
That's
that's
true.
what I wanted people to kind of think about. Like the Stay Wild one, there were so many people growing up to me, and some of them just passed away recently, which probably influenced it, like Jeff Beck. He never did anything like anybody else did, you know? And
See, that goes back to what we always preach on this show about genres. You know, don't lock yourself into one. Be you. Be you who you are. There wasn't
That's
a
right.
Garth before Garth. There wasn't a Jeff Beck before Jeff Beck.
that's right. And David Crosby, he
David
was another
Crosby.
one, you know? And
Yeah.
both of those guys had passed pretty close to each other, and they were just iconic, and they just did it the way they wanted to do it.
Exactly.
And no matter how old they were. And,
Yeah.
you know, that's a good thing to kind of keep in mind.
I think so too. It's good advice. So let's hear this Bird on a High, because you've got some really great songs and great story on this one. Can you play that one for us?
Ooh, I
Is that
don't know
okay?
if I can remember all the
No?
words.
Well,
but,
if not, we'll choose another one. I have that terrible
Honestly.
habit of requesting songs that people aren't ready to play.
but see, if you request them from me earlier, I could be
I
ready. But-
promise.
Well, I'll get through what I get through. How's that?
Do whatever you can. 12-string. That's a Taylor 12-string, by the way. It's a beautiful sound.
An electric one.
An electric one, yeah.
Every time I see birds on a high line, it makes me think about you and all of the crazy and amazing thing you got to do. A boy from Poor Valley who ended up on the CMA stage. Oh, I'm thankful that I got to know you when we met that day. Like birds on a high line, I sing that first verse out loud. It don't matter if I'm all alone in my car or standing in some concert crowd. It takes me back to that fateful day we first met. A whole lot of memories God made that I'll never forget. So I watch as those birds start to fly highway into the sky, and I think back on our last goodbye and the gift you still are to my life. Oh, the great songs you wrote and the bad jokes you told, I smile with tears in my eyes. Oh, I'm thankful that we had that time. When I hear birds on a high line, you'll always be one of my heroes and one of my closest friends. You called us the three amigos. What we had won't happen again. Yeah, you and me and GB, we were a hell of a team. Yeah, that boy from Poor Valley, further than he ever dreamed. Birds on a high line, it makes me think about you.
What a great tribute to your dear friend, Kim Williams. If you're not familiar with Kim, Google, and he's written some great songs like Three Wooden Crosses.
Oh, yeah.
Papa Love Mama.
Papa
You said
Love
he had a penchant of killing people in songs.
He did. He killed off more people than anybody. I mean,
His songs.
Papa Love Mama was one, but I don't know how many died in Three Wooden Crosses. You know,
well, these
nobody
three-
can really figure out what
That's right.
happened
There was
there.
a bus
so-
full of people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Yeah. What a great song. You know, I was at the Songwriter Fest in Gatlinburg last August, and they put him into the Gatlinburg Songwriter Hall of Fame.
Awesome.
That weekend. And I stayed at the Gatlinburg Inn, and what happens during that festival is this big hootenanny on the porch every night. And Kim's wife was there, and she'd shout out a song, and we'd play it, and we just had a blast with her. She was singing.
She's so much fun.
And I absolutely, you just reminded me, I've got to call Amanda, because I adore his daughter, Amanda Williams, and the things she's doing.
She's fabulous.
She says she wants to do the podcast. We just haven't set a date, and we're going to do that. So
tell her I said hi.
I will. She's just amazing, too. In fact, her new record, which I just bought that on a vinyl not too long ago. She does a version of Papa Loves Mama on it. Her own style.
Right.
Oh, it's just really great.
I'll have to Google that.
Yeah.
You know, the last song on the record is another one by Steve Allen and I. But they asked us to come out to Leon Russell's studio and do a show and tour the museum and all that. And so we recorded that song at the studio there.
Did you really?
Yeah, which was pretty magical. But I had just written Birds on a High Line, and I sent it to Phyllis. And she flew in to Tulsa to see the show and thank me for writing that song from Knoxville, Tennessee or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was pretty amazing to me.
What a lovely, lovely woman. And a great woman. Wow.
Great.
Just
Well, you had to be put up with Kim.
Yeah,
for all
I guess
the
you
time.
did, huh?
And you know, I mean, she nursed him back to health when he died about 3 different times. You know, and he was a wild and crazy guy, but she stuck with him the whole time. You know, it's pretty amazing.
I remember Danny Wells on this podcast a while back saying first time he wrote, they went to, he was at a cabin just north of Gatlinburg.
Yeah.
And they said they got there at like 1 o'clock in the morning. So he figured they'd probably get a good night's sleep and get up early and write. And Kim says, well, how you guys feel about, when would you like to get started writing? And he was just like, you know, morning I was thinking, no, how about right now? Let's go. And they wrote all night long, you know. And I love it. You know.
He just, you know, he loved writing. And when he came to town, I guess when he was laying in the hospital bed for a year, he figured God told him he needed to be a songwriter. And he came to town with a vengeance, and he wrote 4 times a day, every single day. And 8 o'clock in the morning till 8 or 10 at night. And I had never seen anybody come to town with that kind of drive. And, you know, it was only 5 years later that he was ASCAP Songwriter of the Year 2 different years in a row. So. And it just shows you what that perseverance and
hard work pays off.
Hard work, and he didn't let his injuries and his health stand in his way. I mean, there were times, I know we were down writing with Clay Walker a couple times, and even when we were touring in Ireland, he had a pick line in him where he had to give himself medicine while we were doing all this stuff. Never complained, never said a word. I was probably about the only one that knew what was going on. And he just kept pushing ahead, you know, and just an amazing human being.
I never had the pleasure of meeting him, but from the stories I hear, I feel like I have known him a little bit.
Yeah.
And I wish I could have. So
he was one of those characters that we don't have a whole lot of characters in Nashville anymore, but he was definitely one of them. Yeah.
We don't.
We don't.
Yeah. We've got a lot of bro bars down there on Broadway, but we got a few characters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of them these days. You get downtown much?
I try to stay away from it as much as possible.
Yeah.
It's, you know, to me, it's good that people think that's Nashville, but that's not Nashville.
Really isn't. I keep telling folks that.
You know, and you can't take them to Music Row anymore because it's not there anymore.
Tell you what was Music Row. It used to be.
This used to be here. Christopherson was here, and Dolly was here, and you know, it's kind of sad that they think that's the music now.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm glad that it's keeping all the musicians working and all that. And Garth started a new bar.
That's right. Garth is open now. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So
Hanks. I'm playing a songwriter night at Hanks on a Sunday night here coming up.
There you go.
Hank Williams Jr.'s Boogie Bar. So
I didn't know he had one. See?
Yeah. It's next to Ernest Tubbs, I guess, record shop.
Okay.
Which I don't think is open still, but anyway.
That's a shame.
It's a whole other story.
Yeah. Great place.
Yeah, absolutely. Man. So anyway, I always get into these little rabbit holes we can run up, but I wanted to talk about nuts and bolts a little bit. I noticed that last song you did, 3/4 time.
Right.
And whenever I really want to write a country song and I feel that this idea deserves a country treatment, I usually start in 3/4 time or, 6/8, something like that.
Right.
It seems to be the thing, huh?
Well, The other thing that's interesting, I'm a big Jason Isbell fan.
Oh, me too.
And so he's got a new album out.
Yeah.
And he does a lot of 3/4 songs.
Yeah.
And he has a capacity of not making it sound like it's a 3/4 song.
Really?
Like this one really falls on the 3/4 beat. But
Yeah.
a lot of his, you almost have to be aware of where the count is to know that he's doing a 3/4 song. But it's something to explore where you don't just always go back to that same 3/4 beat. But on this one, on Birds on a High Line, I could already hear how it was supposed to be before I even had it all written. So it's like, I'm not going to fight it.
So you had a melody in your head first? Or was it more of a groove?
The minute I started, I had that line kept playing over and over in my head. And so as I was driving around Texas, which Lord knows you can do that.
Forever.
I just kept singing that line, but it felt like it was a waltz, And so I wrote out the whole lyric without having a guitar around, and then I found a guitar at J-Boy's house and kind of put it all together. But it was that kind of thing of, well, this is what's supposed to be, you know?
Yeah, it's cool. Very good song. I love it. I just love that song. I Want to Die Young at a Very Old Age. I thought that was the coolest hook I had heard in a long time.
Well, and that was Paul McCartney inspiration, because God bless him, he's still out there rocking along.
He is, man. And he sounds...
he sounds as good as he ever did. And he plays 3 hours a night.
In the same keys back when he was a kid, right?
Right, I know. So
it's crazy.
He's something to really aspire to. And then Dylan's still out there. Lord knows he's been smoking since he was 6 years old. And
you know what I saw recently? Again, down the rabbit hole. I watched again The Last Waltz on Netflix or one of those.
I just read the book about it.
Did you?
Yeah.
What a great film.
Uh-huh.
And Dylan just took it over at the
all
end.
those guys, yeah. It's just...
Shall be relieved. But anyway, yeah, that's a whole other podcast sometime. But anyway, yeah, they're, I love the fact that they're still doing it, right?
And so it's an inspiration for me, to keep doing what I love. Why would I stop?
See, now you're in your 40s, you ain't slowing down at all, aren't you? No.
Well, same with you. You're still out there playing. Why not?
Why not?
As long as we can.
This is what we've worked hard all our lives to be able to do.
Exactly.
Right? So I'm enjoying every bit of it.
So why stop?
I'm not. And you're not either. You stay very busy, don't you?
I do.
What's a typical day for a Hall of Fame songwriter?
I don't know if there is a typical day.
I know there really isn't.
It just depends what's on the docket that day. Whether I do a lot of writing by myself anymore.
Do you?
And it's kind of a different thing of writing with somebody or writing by yourself. And I used to take all of January and just write by myself, but if you don't use it, you kind of lose it. So a few years ago, I think the first one I did this on was Footsteps of Dylan. I had this title that I liked, and so I just wrote the title at the top of the page, and I didn't work on it at all. But every time I would think of something that had to do with Dylan, or I would do some research about him, I would write what I got down on the page, and when the page filled up, I thought, well, let me see if I have a song. And so I thought, well, that's kind of a fun way to do it, where you're not forcing the song to come out. Like some of them, like Birds on a High Line, they're just going to come out. But other ones, so that I'm working on a new record now, and that's kind of what it is. I've got some things I want to say and some titles I'm working with, but I'm not forcing it. So
Good.
Other days are just business stuff you got to take care of, Other days you're on baby duty like we are right now for my wife's daughter.
By the way, your wife's daughter.
So I don't know if there's a typical day. There used to be, like back when Kim and I were writing together, I probably wrote every day, Monday through Friday, at least once, but maybe twice a day.
Wow.
And, that's what you kind of did back then.
Yeah.
But you're just kind
the
of...
lunch pail, start at 10, do a session,
pretty
brunch.
much. Well,
another session in the afternoon.
Garth used to like to write at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Did he?
Yeah.
Was he an early riser?
I don't know. I just think he was ready to get on.
Sometimes you're fresher in the morning.
Yeah,
some people
and he was the first guy, and now most of the young people, they want to start at noon, and I'm like, well, I've been up since 6 in the morning. I don't know when you've been up, but so it's a different world now. But it was just funny to see that 9 o'clock in the morning. And speaking of Kim, one day we got together when he was crunched for time. I think it was on the Fresh Horses album. We wrote at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
That was the only time he had.
Wow.
And we wrote Cowboys and Angels, at 6 o'clock in the morning. And,
6 in the morning.
Yeah. So
wow.
You know, and it's like you said, you can do it any time it strikes you. Like him wanting to start at midnight or 2 a.m. He didn't care. He just wanted to write. He loved it.
He was ready. Yeah. I love that. I love that passion.
As long as you didn't feed him, then he'd fall asleep. We figured that out pretty quick.
Absolutely. Where did you record this one? I know last one you said it was at Garth's place.
Right.
This is different, right?
Well, I was supposed to go in and do it at Garth's place, and I had it all scheduled. And I was out doing a show in Santa Fe, and I was flying back from, I guess, Albuquerque or something, and I got a call. Well, Garth wants to be in the studio, and I went, that guy, you know. So here I was. I had all the musicians lined up. I had everything lined up, and you hate to try to change the schedules of everybody, and because 2 of the guys play with John Party that I always use, the bass player and drummer, and so John's
those guys on this one too, huh?
Yeah,
good.
Just great players, and so I called Juanita at Sound Emporium, and I'd done the one before the one I did at Garth's at Sound Emporium, and I liked that studio, but she didn't have the room that I wanted. She gave me the bigger room. And that just had a magic to it that was unbelievable.
A big room.
We went in and cut 10 songs in one day.
Did you really?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, and it's because Steve and John's
tracks,
guys are
vocals,
so
not vocals though.
Yeah,
just everything.
What I do is I'll sing and play at the same time. Like I was playing on electric guitar and singing all the things while we laid it down.
Yeah,
because there's kind of an energy about everybody being in the room, like everybody used to cut it, you know.
And you want to capture that,
yeah,
don't you?
I want to capture that. And everybody was so enthralled with the feel of that room that they were just so excited about it. I think we started at 10 and we finished maybe before 4 o'clock, cutting 10 songs.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I know.
But that's how great these musicians are too, right?
Well, and you know, what we're aiming for, the Beatles did the same thing. Their first album was cut in one day.
Perfect.
And, you know, what I do with them, and I advise this to anybody, is I'll get with them like a week before and I'll just go over the songs with them and let them chart them out. And then we'll just get to the studio and they're like, well, I don't remember how this went, of course, you know. And so I'll play them a little bit and they got their charts and we just go in and do it. And they're so good. I never tell them what to do, what to play. They just know what to play, and it just makes it easy and fun.
If you're not familiar with charting, there's this Nashville number system, and these guys can listen to the song and they just write numbers down 1, 4, 5, 6 months. They write these numbers down 6 minus, you know, and then there's diamonds and things. It's just it's like algebra. But these guys can look at these numbers and play that song that they've been playing all their life.
That's right.
Great. It's just
hear
amazing.
it one time and play it.
Look it up if you're not familiar. Nashville number system.
It's amazing. I mean,
really is.
the musicianship in this town is just scary.
Beyond belief.
Yeah,
it is. And it's, how many guitar pickers in Nashville? 1,432, I think it was. I love it.
Probably way more than that now. That was the 60s, you know.
That was back in the 60s.
Yeah, I think we had 5 or 6 songwriters then, you know, Roger Miller and Willie Nelson and Chris Christopherson or something.
Look at it now. You just throw a stone in this town, you're going to hit one.
Going to hit somebody somewhere.
Maybe they're waiting on you. Maybe they're parking your car. You never know.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, they're all around. So, and we're all doing the same thing, and that's kind of the reason why we've done this podcast. I like to meet a lot of the songwriters in town and upcoming artists, and ones that I really dig that are new. I love what they're doing. I try to invite them on, so you'll hear new faces here from time to time.
Well, we need people like that. You know, it's like the Bluebird asking me to do a show to bring 3 young people on, and I had just done that at the listening room. It's like they got to have an outlet on where they can be heard, because
I agree.
You know, when we were coming up, you did showcases, or you had places where you could go and hear somebody who wanted to be an artist, and that doesn't really exist these days. It really it's more what's your social numbers, and
isn't that crazy?
You know, so it's a different world, but I sure miss being able to go hear a guy or a girl that wants to do. That's how Trisha got her record deal, was at Douglas Corner, which I miss. You know,
oh, I miss that place too. She did, really.
Yeah,
was it Douglas Corner?
Douglas Corner, and there were like 3 record labels there, and I think Tony Brown jumped up on the stage afterwards and said, "I'm signing you," you know, and
wow,
that's how it happened.
Incredible.
Yeah.
You know, you were saying too in the last time that we got together, it used to be back in the day, you do if you were an up and coming artist, you do these demo sessions. Garth did. Trisha was a demo singer, and a lot of times the record exec would hear the demo and they go, "Who's that singing?" And you could build. You know, today you say it's more about your social numbers, which made me want to ask a question. And I should have then. How important is it to demo a good song that you love today as a writer? Are people still doing that?
You know,
and then pitching it.
What it's come down to these days, it seems like for most of the people I talk to, is the deals that kids get these days are so totally different. The 360 deal where all the money that you're going to make goes to somebody till you break even.
Sales,
all of it.
Publishing.
Yeah. And so what that's set up is a thing where whether a singer can write, he's told he's got to write. Mm-hmm. So they have a little clique usually of people that are all on the same publishing company label, and they write together, and they have a guy called a track guy. That while they're writing a song, the track guy's working on a track. So at the end of the day, if they've written a song, they have the track guy did a demo. So there aren't really demos these days much. Larry Beard's about the only place I know that's still doing demos and doing a great job and has demo singers and stuff. But most of them, it's in these little cliques of people, and it's because they're trying to keep the money there is in this little group
in-house.
Of people. Yeah. And the sad part is, Garth could have written every song on every album by himself.
And he could have. I don't know if people realize that.
Yeah, he's such an incredible writer. But half the songs on every album were outside songs. So he found The Dance, and he found Friends in Low Places, and he found Shameless, Baton Rouge, all these songs that took him to a higher level. And I don't really see that happening these days, where somebody finds another song that really takes them to a different level. Maybe Cody Johnson might be the only one that comes to mind, but I think we're missing something there.
I do too. I really do. I mean, how many more number one Ashley Gorley hits? I know. Although I love him. I mean, he's 60 or some number one songs, but it just seems to be the same people, again and again. And it's going to catch up, I think, if it doesn't change.
Yeah.
So who knows? I hope anyway. I'm just conjecture. It's just conjecture, Who can predict the future,
Yeah, I don't know.
Absolutely. Well, how about, I know we chat a lot and I get off track, I get down rabbit holes, but how about one more song to leave us from this great new record, Beatles to the Bluebird, with Kent Blazy, who's been our guest in the song.
All right, let me think of what I would do.
Anything you like. Mm-hmm. Oh, there's the Beatles. Listen to that.
He was in a band that changed the world. He was a man that changed my life. I picked up an electric guitar after hearing a hard day's night. He's always been my inspiration, fired up my imagination, been tearing it up since the 60s, still rocking right into his 80s. He gives me the motivation to keep doing what I love, and I want to die young at a very old age. I don't want to close the book till I've read every page. Make the most of every moment I'm given, live it up while I'm still living. Yeah, I want to die young at a very old age. Every morning when I open up my eyes, I just smile and say, lucky, lucky me, lucky me. And Dave, every day is another celebration. Yeah, the older I get, the older I want to be. It's a matter of perception, time's a matter of invention. What if life is all about making every moment count, and the fountain of youth
young at a very old age. I want to die young at a very old.
Awesome. That's my favorite song on that CD. Absolutely. I want to die young, but at a very old age.
Exactly, yeah.
I love it. What a great concept. Oh, carry that with you. It's like, don't let the old man in, you know?
Exactly. Don't let the old man in.
I love it.
Or the old woman in.
Or the old woman in. That's right. So, Kent, all the best with this one. And I know you're already working on your next one.
I'm working on it.
And when it's out, I want you to come back. And hope
of
you will.
course.
Yeah. Kent Blazy, the Songwriter Hall of Fame member. So happy to have you here around the dining room table.
Happy to be here, Dave. It's always great. It's always fun.
You're the man.
Thank you for listening to the Songwriter Connection podcast. Find us on social media at Songwriter Connection. Also, listen to Dave Lanahan's Nashville Connections radio show. It streams live every Friday morning on WOBL and WNOI. Look for us on Facebook and YouTube. See you next time on Songwriter Connection.